The next thing we'll be looking at under the similarities and differences of the pre-colonial political system of administration is the system of law. The system of law. For the Fulani Emirates, the Islamic and Sharia law were the basic laws in the Fulani Emirates. They guided the social, the political, and the political life of the people. So wherever the Sharia law had a say, the Sharia law was the basic law in Fulani Emirates. Everything they did, it governed their lives, the way they gave taxes, the political system of government in place. Everything was laid out by the Islamic or Sharia, the Islamic and Sharia law. So the system of law in the Fulani Emirates in the pre-colonial times was basically the Islamic and Sharia law, and it was only in situations where the Islamic or Sharia law did not have a say that the emir could give laws on such situations or issues. In the Yoruba Kingdom and Igbo society, there was no recognized system of law. There were no formal rules, but the pronouncements of the rulers or relevant institutions are the force of law. So for the Yoruba Kingdom, we did not have any Islamic kind of or Sharia kind of law. They did not have any Islamic or Sharia kind of law that governed them, but whatever the ruler pronounces as a law becomes a law. And for the Igbo society, when whatever laws has been made by relevant institutions became the force of law, and it had to be followed by every other person. The age grade could make a law, the council of elders could make a law, the village heads could make law. Whatever any institutions make as a law that everybody had agreed upon becomes a law for the Igbo pre-colonial time, while the Yorubas, whatever the ruler pronounces as a law becomes a law. Also, we'll be looking at the operation of the principle of separation of power in the pre-colonial times. For the Fulani Emirates, there was no clear separation of power. There was no clear separation of power in all the pre-colonial governments in Nigeria. There was no clear separation of power in all pre-colonial governments in Nigeria. The Yorubas, however, had a rudimentary show of check and balance that worked to prevent centralization of power, or that worked to prevent abuse of power. So there was no clear separation of power in the pre-colonial governments in Nigeria, but the Yorubas had a system of check and balance in place to avoid abuse of power by the rulers. For example, the Oba could be forced to abdicate the throne if the Oyomesi sent him an empty calabash, and the women go out nakedly in protest against him. So in the pre-colonial times in Nigeria, the pre-colonial government in Nigeria, they had no clear separation of power. But for the Yorubas, there was a system of check and balance in place. The next thing we'll be looking at is source of revenue. In the Hausa and Fulani Emirates, direct taxation has always been part of the system, and taxation formed the major source of revenue in the Emirates. So for the Hausa and Fulani Emirates, taxation was their major source of revenue. Everybody back in the Hausa pre-colonial times had to pay tax, and they had different types of taxes they paid. They had the ones they paid on cattle and animals. They had the ones they paid to help the widows, the orphans, the needies, and the poor people among them. So the system of taxation was the major source of revenue for the Hausa and Fulani Emirates in the pre-colonial times. The tribute system was common in the Yoruba part. In the Yoruba pre-colonial times, they had what they paid was tribute. They paid tribute, and there was corruption in this tribute system. There was corruption in the tribute system. Under the system, those connected with the collection of tributes had always profited from the transaction, but their obligation was only to hand over the balance to the king. So in the Yoruba pre-colonial times, they had what we call the tribute system. So this was the people had to pay a tribute to the king. So the tribute was in terms of agricultural produce. So they would send this agricultural produce to the king. There must be food in the king's house. So in the Yoruba's pre-colonial times, what they had was what we call the tribute system. So they paid tribute to the king. And under this tribute system, there was corruption. There was a lot of corruption in the tribute system, because the people that collected this tribute, the village heads and the baales, they would have taken their own share, and they would hand only the balance. They would hand over the balance to the king. So there was corruption in the tribute system in the Yoruba in the Yoruba pre-colonial system of administration. The next thing we'll be looking at is law enforcement. In the three political systems, the law was enforced through some political institutions. The age groups helped in law enforcement in the Igbo political system. They also mobilized for war against neighboring communities. The Oba's bodyguards and the standing army, the Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò in the old Oyo Empire, assisted in maintaining internal and external security in the Yoruba kingdom, while the cavalry, headed by the Madwaki in the Fulani Emirate, helped in the maintenance of law and order in the Fulani Emirate. So they had the three pre-colonial political systems, they had laws enforced through some political institutions. The age grades in the Igbo political system were involved in law enforcement. They were also the ones that mobilized for war against neighboring communities. They were the ones that guarded their communities against external attacks. The Oba's bodyguards and the standing army in terms of the person of the Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò in the old Oyo Empire assisted in maintaining internal and external securities in the Yoruba kingdom, while the cavalry, headed by the Madwaki, helped to maintain law and order in the Fulani Emirates and to avoid external attacks against their emirates. With this, we've come to the end of the class. In the last class, we looked at the similarities and the differences in the three pre-colonial systems of administration in Nigeria. In the next class, we'll be looking at the differences between the three pre-colonial systems of administration in Nigeria. See you at the next class.